The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of This Week in AFL. Alongside Eric Watkins, as always, I'm Stephen and Erik. Eric, I don't know if you paid attention past 3-4 days. That the news has just been crazy with the Arena Football League, especially in the world of Washington. It's just everything's going crazy.
I already have a busy week as is, but now I have two leagues kind of merging and creating these headlines. It's like, God, make it stop. At least let me get my cider first.
So as we said, there's big news going on. 2 star players are now have one from Cleveland to Baltimore. An MVP quarterback is on the IR. A former Las Vegas Outlaw starting this weekend against the defending champions. We will get to all that.
Not to mention the trade. Not to mention, I guess, acquisitions too. On top of all of that.
So much to get to. We will get to that later. For now, we recap week
7.
Week 7. Yes. It's been a while since we did the show. I've been out on vacation, and Eric's been busy, so... Okay, let's get right into it. Philadelphia hosted Cleveland in their second meeting in 3 weeks, and once again, the sole best of the Gladiators. But this time, it wasn't as pretty as the last meeting. They won 64-46, and the Gladiators they just looked so off in this game. Garvin Nelson threw 2 interceptions in the first half. He had only thrown 2 interceptions the whole season prior to that game. I don't know what was up with Nelson in that game. I think that defense is just too good.
Yeah, it really wasn't Nelson's fault entirely. I mean, receivers really weren't getting open, but he was able to do what he could, especially getting out of the pocket. But you can thank Joe Gooseby for creating a lot of those defensive stat lines. I mean, he had 2 of Nelson's 3 interceptions on the night. I think he had a half sack on top of that. I mean, he just went nuts.
Yeah, Joe Gooseby, he was huge for the Soul on Saturday night. I believe it was Saturday night. He recorded 2 interceptions and, like Eric said, half a sack. But the one thing I remember watching this game, and I saw this play where I think it was the second interception. He had a receiver, I don't remember the receiver, I think it was Quentin Sims. He was wide open. And instead he goes for Colin Taylor. And who else is there right in front of him?
Yep.
Besides James Romaine. I mean, and I saw that play, and I was like, Nelson, what are you doing? That was a terrible throw. That's why I'm not questioning Arvin Nelson now, because he's still a good quarterback. It's just, I don't understand why he made that throw.
He is a good quarterback, but I think there was a lot more defensive confusion that Philadelphia created, and especially with what was going on with Cleveland leading up to this game, which we'll get into later, but I think that had a little bit of an effect. The game plan was a little bit off, and then with Philly being literally perfect on offense throughout a vast majority of the game, that put pressure on Arvell to try to have to match pace, make throws, and that got into his head a little bit.
Yeah, this whole defense is getting into a lot of quarterbacks' heads. All these quarterbacks that have played against this whole defense have not been successful too much. And I know this is crazy to say, Eric. They won the division last year. I mean, the Rita Bowl, excuse me. Won the Rita Bowl last year. They forced 5 turnovers against Dick DeVille and their Arizona Rattlers. You could not, and most people would say this, and people that still follow the AFL would say, there's no way the defense got better. If you ask me, this defense has definitely gotten better, though.
Now, I'm going to throw out a little stat that I've thrown previously with this game. Look at what the defense has done and show a little pattern league-wide. There have now been, if I remember correctly, 8 total instances where a team has scored 60 points in a game this season. 8. Philadelphia now has 4 of them. They have that magic number in mind. No one else is getting close. Yes, to me, this defense did get better. That scares me.
Wow, 60 points. 4 times the solo score 60 points. That just shows that not only are they great on defense, they're also great on offense. Now, you say that they are near perfect. I don't know about that. I've seen a few plays where, Radaball is throwing some off-target passes and he's overthrowing his receivers. Other than that, though, yes, he is definitely on point. His receivers, and I said this last time we were on the show, Ryan McDaniel has become a big part to this team. I'm liking what I'm seeing from this whole offense as well.
Yeah, and what I meant by perfect is if you gauge their offensive efficiency, where if you get stopped, that's worth nothing. If you have a field goal, 50%, and a touchdown, of course, being 100%. Thanks to a lot of one-play drives, especially in Cleveland, Philadelphia spent almost the entire game at 100% efficiency. They scored a touchdown on almost every single drive. And it was just earlier this season where they had a league record 155 consecutive quarters scoring at least once snapped. The numbers are speaking for themselves.
Soldiers continue to impress. They win the game 64-46. But this, and it could have been a much closer game. It probably should have been a much closer game than it was. But this is the one that Erik likes throwing out stats. My turn to throw out an interesting stat. But this way, there's no question that this killed the Cleveland Gladiators in their game against Philadelphia. Onside kicks. 4-5 on onside. How do you get that bad on onside kicks? It is mind-baffling. They went 0 for 5 on onside kicks. Unbelievable.
It was just a lack of execution. I think on one of those attempts there was some sort of penalty, but the ball didn't bounce the right way. Philadelphia was right there to cover just about every time. I mean, I would have thought that they would have practiced something like this a little bit more often, but turns out not.
I guess not. They'll have to work on that more as they go on, especially if they're down in another game. Like, they have a tough cup game against Baltimore this week. We'll get to that in a sec. They'll have to work on their kicking game, obviously, because they can't recover onside kicks. I believe they just had a new kicker. I'm not sure if that was them or another team.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know, Eric.
No, unless the name Nick Belcher is coming up, and I know you heard that name quite a bit talking about some of our other coverage, but if he's not getting to the bump to one of these AFL teams, then it may not make much of a difference.
I don't know. I think I might have heard someone. I'll have to do a little more research on that and then get that to you guys. So, yeah, Philadelphia won the game. Joe Gooseby, big time player. 2 interceptions, half a sack. Cleveland went 0 for 5 on onside kicks. You can't have that again. I mean, that was just too much for me. Too much for the Gladiators. They fall to 1-4 on the season, up with 1-5.
Yeah, because I think they've only had one bye week so far.
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the Cleveland Gladiators are not the same team we thought they were. The Valor. The Valor fired offensive coach Steve Thon, who was the coach of the Cleveland Gladiators last year. We'll get to that in just a sec as well. So, any final thoughts on the Soul and the Gladiators game from last week?
I might have to change a prediction if this keeps coming up.
Well, reminder, everybody, 4 out of the 5 teams in the American Football League make the playoffs. So while the Gladiators are down, they are not out.
No, and that's a saving grace, but while they look good uniform-wise on the road, I don't trust them playing as well on the road, especially in the playoffs if they do get in.
Oh, yeah, I would assume they wouldn't make it past the semifinals. If they did, it would be an upset against Philadelphia, most likely. But let's move on from that game. Now we go on to the Storm and the Valor. I didn't watch the game. I don't know, Erik didn't watch the game, but we do have some notes here from the game. I saw the halftime score was 26-14 Valor, and I was like, uh-oh, I'm smelling an upset because the Valor had lost 3 straight.
Mm-hmm.
And the Storm had won 3 straight. And I was thinking, if the Valor pulls this off tonight, I was obviously an upset. But, of course, the Valored it. Well, I mean, what else can I say? They held a 26-14 lead at the half, and then they choked it away.
And the thing is, the Valor still had a chance to win. In the final 30 seconds, at least stop Tampa Bay, force overtime. They don't do that, they give up a touchdown. Then, 3 seconds left. Make a throw, do something. You may be able to get a fluke off the net. That didn't work. I don't know if it was because of Thon's firing or I just don't get it. This team, I've seen this before. They've got great talent. T.T. Tolliver, congratulations on surpassing the 2,000 point mark in his career, but they just can't put it together at key times.
And speaking of key times, for the second time in 3 weeks, Tampa Bay, they're clutch. They just showed that. For the second time in 3 weeks, Joe Hill scores the game-winning touchdown with less than 5 seconds left. Eric, I know it's way too early to talking about this. Joe Hill's for MVP, possibly?
Quite possibly, because he's been the force, but even then, he's had a couple of quiet games just this season for Tampa Bay. I mean, he's emerging to be the star, but it's going to be a tough competition between him, Kendrick Ings, Lamar Brown. That's a little too crowded, if you ask me.
Good point. The Storm have a loaded team just like Philadelphia does. Lamar Brown he's a new name. I'm very impressed with what he's done. Kendrick Ings has done well in the return game.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Hill's doing Joe Hill things. He scored 3 touchdowns a game or more. But the Valor. Let's talk a little about the Valor now. They've lost 4 games in a row. The only question I can ask Erik is, in the words of Vince Lombardi, what the hell's going on out here?
I think there's got to be. How can I explain this? There's an issue with voices. Now, you have your voice, your head coach. Is he not the one that's getting through? You've changed offensive coordinators. Is that not getting through? Can you chalk that up to, okay, you now have to adjust your system mid-season? Is it the voice of some of the top players? We look at Tolliver, Erik Meyer, Washington. Is there issues with leadership there? I don't hear enough from this team, and it seems like there's a lot of clutter. And this is what happens when you have a lot of clutter.
Yeah, for those that didn't know, Mike Washington is battling a hamstring injury. That's why he didn't play against Tampa. But that's no excuse for losing a game. I mean, you have T.T. Tolliver, one of the best receivers in the game. Former MVP Erik Meyer. It looked like he hasn't lost his step. Not too much, at least.
No.
I mean, what else can I say? There's no excuse for the Valor. I have nothing. There's just no excuse for Washington to be losing 4 in a row.
And I mean, yes, you can give the cop out that, they're an expansion team, but they had a significant amount of time to get this together. You have guys that come in, you should be able to at least be competitive, which they are, but you can only be competitive for so long before you're expected to win. Now, I don't know if this is another case of chemistry. I don't know if there's still something going on in the organization, but you can clearly see something feels like it's missing.
Yeah,
what it is to be determined.
Yeah, you have a point there. There's something missing. And I really want to go into this now because there's a lot to cover tonight. Erik Meyer has not been placed on the IR. What the injury is, I am not sure of. But I do know Erik Meyer is pretty much done for the year. And now it is Sean Brackett's team. The only thing I know about Sean Brackett is that he started for the Guangzhou Power last year. No, the Qingdao Clipper. Where was the Guangzhou Power? One of those two teams. He played in the China Arena Football League last year. And he did pretty good. Erik, you have been watching the AFL a lot longer than me. He is a former Las Vegas Outlaw. Do you remember anything from his days in Las Vegas?
He was a little bit better than Radderink, but that wasn't saying much. He also had a cup of coffee as a backup in Jacksonville. Pretty young when it comes to the AFL. Personally, I think the team should have done more to keep Bernard Morris. Get into that whole situation a little later, but you could say serviceable, but really with how the team's been finishing, I don't know if it's going to be much of a drop-off. I mean, again, I have to wait and see. He didn't produce a lot in Vegas, clearly, but he might be able to do something here.
Yeah, I mean, from what I remember, and it's very little, because I did watch a little bit of the 2015 season. Not too much. I watched a little bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
The Las Vegas Outlaws didn't do much in Vegas, and that's why they're no longer there.
Yeah, they organizationally they had issues, and it was a whole big to-do with the cancellation of their game against Portland, which led to a tie, which actually would have put them in the playoffs, but then the league said no. That was a whole mess.
Oh, boy. So, as Erik said, we will get to this. There's a lot. The Morris story. Shane Boyd and Brandon Thompkins being in Baltimore now. We will go over this. We'll react to it. A lot coming up on the other side. You were listening to This Week in the AFL.
Hello to all you Arena League football fans out there. I want to personally welcome you to join us, AFL Fan Zone, every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a weekly recap of all things AFL. You got stuff to do on the weekends, which means you probably don't have time to sit down and watch every single game every week. That's where AFL Fan Zone comes in. Not only do we break down the week, but we provide you with everything you need to stay up to date with the AFL, including Players of the Week, Power Rankings, and the weekly standings. Best part is, the recap is fully interactive between the viewers and the host. Just search AFL Fan Zone on YouTube and you can find all of our archived videos, including game previews, recaps, and weekly updates. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at our website at www.aflfanzone.com. AFL Fan Zone, your internet home for the best AFL fans.
Hi, I'm Donovan James, and welcome to the Don James High School Football Report, everybody, where we discuss and debate the hottest prep and college football recruiting topics in the country every week. Only here on NGSC Sports, 9:30 Eastern. For more, follow me on Twitter at Don James Sports.
It's game time, boys, and we know football. Football the Max is the podcast for you if you want in-depth analysis over the NFL and college football. We preview all the action coming your way over the weekend. And we break down all the big action after it's happened. Plus, we tackle all the big news topics and discuss everything when it comes to the gridiron. So come check out Football to the Max every Tuesday morning and Friday morning on the W2M network.
Are you an arena football fan looking for the latest news involving your team? Inside the Arena has you covered. Check us out for the latest news around both the Arena Football League and the Chinese Arena Football League. Read all of our stellar articles at InsideTheArena.org. Also, follow us on Twitter at Inside_Arena and like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/InsideTheArena.
Welcome back to This Week in the AFL alongside Erik Watkins. I'm Stephen Erik. A lot of news to get to right now. Eric, where do you want to start now, Eric?
First of all, let's start with Cleveland, because everything seems to center around Cleveland right about now.
That is true. That is so true. The Cleveland Gladiators have traded Shane Boyd and Brandon Thompkins to the Baltimore Brigade for what? I don't really know. Again,
it might have been Frederick Obi, because I saw him playing against Philadelphia, and I was like, wait a minute. When did that happen? Okay.
Well, anyway, so I saw when this trade came up, I was on Twitter and I see Marine Football League transaction alert. I'm like, wait, whoa, wait, what just happened? And I see Shane Boyd and Brandon Thompkins. I was like, what? I was shocked. Not really shocked that Shane Boyd left, because Shane Boyd, what did he do in Cleveland? He didn't do anything. He played one game, played bad, got benched, and that was it. But now, and I'm just spitballing, Eric. You might think I'm crazy. You might think, hey, maybe he's onto something. So let's start with this. Baltimore started Chase Cartwright week 1 against Washington, and they fell down 34-6. That was pretty much the end of Chase Cartwright. So in comes Chase Cartwright. Excuse me. In comes Shane Carden, CAFL product, and a few other places. But anyway. And he does pretty well. They outscore the Ballard 34-28. They still lose by 13. And then Shane Carden goes on the road, wins against Cleveland. And I was like, oh my God, we have a franchise quarterback. I'll hold the phone. We've just lost 3 games in a row with Shane Carden. So now that Shane Boyd is on the team, I'm just spitballing, Eric, again. Maybe it's possible we see Boyd in Baltimore?
I want to say you're nuts because of Shane Boyd's performances in Arizona and with Cleveland. But honestly, with how the league is setting up and you're trying to get everybody else to chase Tampa Bay and Philly,
yes,
you might be onto something. Baltimore may get desperate enough to try to start him. Now, granted, this could fail miserably. But at this point, if you're the Brigade, what do you have to lose?
And I coming into the season, being the second expansion team, the second expansion team, I expected nothing out of Baltimore. I expected them to be pretty much the last team out.
Mm-hmm.
And here they are. They sit at the 3rd best record in the league, obviously behind Tampa and Philly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm astonished by this. And so, Shane Carter's done well, but he's not winning. That's why I say maybe they could look into starting Shane Boyd against Cleveland.
Now, if Boyd... Now you're entering a funny spot if you do, because what if Shane Boyd loses? Now you're in a situation to where you brought in a quarterback who hasn't done much as a starter, hindering the young player who is developing as a starter. You put a speed bump in that. What does that do for you as a team for the rest of this season? Now, yes, you did say they're sitting in 3rd right now, but look at the records. You've got Philadelphia undefeated. Tampa Bay, their only loss is to Philadelphia. Right. And everybody else in Cleveland, Washington, Baltimore, they've each only won once, maybe one of them twice.
I'm pretty sure they all won 1 game.
Okay, so yes, you're sitting in 3rd, but on a tiebreaker, and you're still trying to struggle even to get to mediocrity when it comes to the record books. So, this, and I use this word a lot, this is a major conundrum that Baltimore is putting themselves in. And not the kind that I deal with, this is the bad kind.
We won't go into Eric's conundrums, but yes, this is a situation in Baltimore. I wish I could think of a word that starts with B. That's like problem. But anyway, if I'm Omar Smith,
Well, botchery, that's a good one.
There's one. If I'm Omar Smith, I want to see. I just want to. This is a test game. You don't lose much if you lose to Cleveland. You go from third to fourth. You don't lose much.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see, okay, how did Shane do against this Cleveland defense? Did he play well? Did he do okay? If he does okay, then there's a conundrum. Okay, now where do I go? If Shane Boyd does what he did against Tampa, all right, Shane Carden. Scarf. There's two Shanes now in Baltimore. Carden, this is your team. And then I stick with Carden and hope that Washington and Cleveland both bite the bottom of the barrel, and Baltimore winds up going to Washington for the playoffs.
Now, and it's funny that you mentioned this as a game for that scenario. I wouldn't look at it as, okay, how did he do against this defense? I would be saying, okay, Boyd, you started the season with Cleveland. You practiced with them. You've seen how they are on defense. How much do you remember? And what can you exploit? Now, if he can't put that together, then he's done. But if he can, then maybe it's a little bit of a glimmer. And if he can put enough to win, okay, that buys him another week outright. Maybe two.
It's an interesting way to look at it, definitely. But let's say you are Omar Smith. Shane Boyd does well against Cleveland. And now you have to decide which quarterback you want on your team to start for your team in the following week. Who do you go for?
If Boyd does enough to get me a win, I give Boyd another week. I make him the starter, but on a short leash.
Okay.
If he doesn't, then it's like, okay, Carden, we tried something. It's yours the rest of the way.
Okay, well, let's keep in mind, in week 9, the Brigade are playing the Tampa Bay Storm in Tampa. The team, they won the one game where Shane Boyd played and lost. So, this was something to think about if you're Coach Omar Smith. But we will see. We don't know. All we know is Sean Brackett's starting for Valor. We don't know who's going to start for the Brigade against Cleveland. Shane Boyd, Shane Carden. Maybe we should make a poll inside the arena. Who do you think should start for quarterback against
Which
Cleveland on
Shane
Saturday?
is the best?
Yes, which Shane is the right Shane? Carden, Boyd. We'll put that poll up after the show, and we'll see what people think. That game is Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, CBS Sports Network. Now let's go to that Morris story, because it's an interesting one. We know, here on the AFL, we don't get much into the NAL, and we probably won't get much into the NAL, but this is a news story for the AFL. Bernard Morris has signed with the Monterey Steel in the National Arena League. And what's funny is, though, Eric, after we wrote the story, got it up on the site and everything, I see that they placed him on league suspension. What I don't get is he's not in the league anymore. So what does it matter putting him on league suspension or not?
Basically because this is how league suspension works. In the AFL, the fact that if it doesn't work out and he wants to come back, Washington would still technically have his rights. So they figure, okay, since they would have to work out some sort of complicated trade or things like that, they would have to do this. It's a lot of blueprint and technicalities. What I don't get is, Meyer's on IR. You played against Tampa. You threw a touchdown pass against Tampa. Why leave? That's what I don't understand.
That's a very good point, too. We saw last year, Bernard Morris took over for Randy Hibbert after Hibbert tore his ACL in June.
Mm-hmm.
Led the Predators to the best record in the league,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not his fault they lost to the Sharks. That was the kicker's fault. He should have made that chip shot.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned Sharks because there's a lot of this kind of aura that's going with him going to Monterey.
I will break down more the Morris story on NAL Now, which follows this week in the AFL. But Morris has shown he can be successful, and he has the targets. He has better targets.
Yes,
he's still a great card from his Orlando days, but now he has TT Tolliver. Mike Washington will eventually come back. And I'm with Erik. I'm on Erik's side with this. Why did Morris have to leave? Because he's on suspension? We don't know how long it would have been. 1-2 games. Okay, we stick with bracket for 1 or 2 games. Morris starts, and that right there, that just makes everything so much better.
Yeah, and I would love to know the timing of when Washington placed him on league suspension. Did this lead to him signing with Monterrey, or did they do this because he signed with them? Because if you're talking about a finite timeline here, I would want to know, was there an opportunity to talk him out of it? What happened? To me, there's a lot of swirling questions going on here.
Yeah, a lot of things are very confusing right now with Morris and the Valor and everything. I just honestly cannot figure it out.
That makes 2 of us.
And the only other real news thing I can think of is Gladiator signed Danny Southwick. Marvin Nelson is playing well enough to be a starter, so they pretty much just got another quarterback to be on the roster while Tanner Marsh is on IR with a concussion.
Oh, really? Southwick?
Danny Southwick.
Oh my God! It's okay. I get that you need to complete and fill the numbers, but what if, God forbid, something happens to Arvell Nelson?
Oh God!
Then what?
Oh my God!
I saw him in Portland in I gotta borrow Vince Lombardi's quote here. What the hell is going on out there?
There's a lot going on in the AFL. A lot of interesting things. A lot of quarterbacks coming and going and leaving and everything. But I want to go back to the original story we're talking about. Shane Boyd, Brandon Thompkins, both go to Baltimore. He didn't. I'm talking about Brandon Thompkins here. He didn't do too well in Cleveland, not like he did in Orlando. I hope maybe that he goes back to where he played in Orlando with Baltimore, because obviously something wasn't going on in Cleveland.
Well, that's because in Orlando, Thompkins was like the number 2 guy in that offense. Right. He was one of the big, and especially very prominent in kick returns as well. Yeah. He was a very dynamic player. But with Cleveland, he was more the number 3, if at all, between Quentin Sims, between Colin Taylor. You also throw in Brackens in the situation, so you're figuring at best he's the number 3 guy, but realistically closer to number 4. Now you go to a team like the Brigade, especially with Reggie Gray out, done for the season. Right. He could be the number 1. And if you put him in a position to be the number 1, he's going to shine. So if everything gets straightened out at quarterback, that whole cloud clears up. You can just open up the sky and have that be your limit for Thompkins. So this good move on that part, I will say.
I wasn't even thinking about him on offense. All I was thinking about is, because I know him more as a special teams player than a wide receiver. But now you got me. You do this often. You get me thinking, wow, I realized Richard Gray's gone. Julian Talley, he's doing pretty well, but he's no Brandon Thompkins.
No.
So yeah, I definitely could see Thompkins doing well. I can't wait to see him against Cleveland. It's gonna be a fun game to watch.
Oh, it's great, especially with the timing. It's like, yeah, you're playing the team that just got rid of you. Extra motivation much?
That's quite possible. Any other news stories you could think of, Eric, before we take our break and get into the next two games?
Oh, no. Unless there's a news alert that I'm missing, I think we've delved into the insanity. So let me go before I need a straitjacket.
All right, when we come back, we will discuss the games going on Week 8. One's going to be pretty good, hopefully. One, we'll talk about it on the other side. You're listening This Week in the AFL.
Hello to all you Arena League football fans out there. I want to personally welcome you to join us, AFL Fan Zone, every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a weekly recap of all things AFL. You got stuff to do on the weekends, which means you probably don't have time to sit down and watch every single game every week. That's where AFL Fan Zone comes in. Not only do we break down the week, but we provide you with everything you need to stay up to date with the AFL, including Players of the Week, Power Rankings, and the weekly standings. Best part is, the recap is fully interactive between the viewers and the host. Just search AFL Fan Zone on YouTube and you can find all of our archived videos, including game previews, recaps, and weekly updates. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at our website at www.aflfanzone.com. AFL Fan Zone, your internet home for the best AFL fans.
Hi, I'm Donovan James, and welcome to the Don James High School Football Report, everybody, where we discuss and debate the hottest prep and college football recruiting topics in the country every week. Only here on NGSC Sports, 9:30 Eastern. For more, follow me on Twitter at Don James Sports.
It's game time, boys, and we know football. Football the Max is the podcast for you if you want in-depth analysis over the NFL and college football. We preview all the action coming your way over the weekend. And we break down all the big action after it's happened. Plus, we tackle all the big news topics and discuss everything when it comes to the gridiron. So come check out Football to the Max every Tuesday morning and Friday morning on the W2M network.
Are you an arena football fan looking for the latest news involving your team? Inside the Arena has you covered. Check us out for the latest news around both the Arena Football League and the Chinese Arena Football League. Read all of our stellar articles at InsideTheArena.org. Also, follow us on Twitter at Inside_Arena and like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/InsideTheArena.
This Week in the AFL alongside Eric Watkins, I'm Stephen and Erik. Fun segment, the last one. We had talked about a lot of news stories and a lot of conundrums going on now. Now a lot more to look forward to in Week 8.
Yeah, everything. Funny the timing of all these news stories, and there's actually one more that I remember that we missed.
Which one's that?
The Sire Burley announcement.
Oh, okay. So we're going to delay our game talk for a second. We're going to talk about Sire Burley, the Cleveland Gladiators offensive coordinator, stepping down effective immediately to become the Jacksonville Sharks head coach. Go ahead, Eric.
Now, this was a bit of an interesting, and again, to cover the NAL side of it, the Sharks are undefeated. Their last game, they won kind of ugly. And I mean, it's the best way to describe it when
right.
At one point the score is 16-4. But things were going well. 8-0, best team in the league. And all of a sudden, Jeff Bushey, which I have said many things about over the past couple of years, pulls a typical Jeff Bushey move, fires Mark Stout, and then practically within hours, hires Sire Burley. I like the move as a little bit of an advancement for Burley's case. Very offensive guy, doing what he did with Nelson. He will have a similar style quarterback in Damian Fleming. Maybe that will help the offense click even better, but it still leaves me a little confused because there's an aura of fixing something that isn't broken and breaking 2 or 3 other things in the process.
Yeah, I mean, the news that the Sharks fired their head coach Mark Stout in the first place shocked the whole world. everyone from the NAL is like, what the hell did they just do? Why did they just do this? They're 8-0, but there's a story behind that. I might get into it on the NAL now, coming up after this.
Uh-oh.
But we're getting into the AFL side of this. I don't know who's going to take over the Gladiators' offense. Probably Ron Selesky, since, he has no interim. I don't believe he does.
No.
So maybe, just maybe, Gladiators will change up their offensive gameplay and maybe something will click.
But, I mean, how? I mean, when you have a legit, arguably the legit dual-threat quarterback in this league in Arvell Nelson, how can you change? Because if you're going to try to have a scheme to where you're keeping him in the pocket, that takes time to develop. That's going to be 2 or 3 games. And with Cleveland sitting where they are now, do they really want to risk those 2-3 games where you're bunched up in a pack? You could all of a sudden find yourself as a lone team out of the picture if things don't do well. This puts them in a bit of a corner.
Yeah, they're in a pickle, so to say. But I mean, obviously something hasn't worked out with the offense. They've lost 4 in a row now, I believe so. No.
They've lost 4 in a row, but they're still middle of the pack as far as points per game. They've been averaging a little over 50, which again, considering how scoring has become at a premium this season, that is very significant. And now that you're going to start to get to the point to where you're going to see teams for the 3rd time, for the 4th time, scoring is going to be an even bigger of a premium. So you've got a lot that you would still have to worry about if you're a defensive coordinator with Arvell Nelson. You take that away, you can potentially dominate.
Make a good point. But anyway, so that's that. How do you say his name again? I don't remember. I'm bad with names.
Which name? Cy Burley?
Cy Burley, you are.
Mm-hmm.
I stepped down as the Cleveland Gladiators offensive coordinator, become the Jacksonville Sharks head coach. I will get into the NAL side of that, talk about why they probably marked out, all that, on NAL now, following this. All right, Week 8. Let's start with the first game, 1 o'clock Eastern, MonumentalSportsNetwork.com. The Valor hosts the Soul for the 2nd time this season. I said it after their first game, when the Soul won 49-31, I believe the score was, something like that. Ugly game by the Valor. Erik Meyer didn't play well. They blew up 14-0 against defending world champions. They didn't even know, and the Soul still make a joke about this today. They didn't know when the kicker misses a field goal and he hits the crossbar or whatever, it could be returned for a touchdown. And James Romain did just that in their first meeting in Washington. Now you have Sean Brackett, who has very limited playing time. And no Mike Washington probably. He still has the hamstring injury. This game, my God, it's going to be a shutout at halftime at least.
Can Washington score 20? That's going to be the question, and I don't know if they can. Defensively, after the performance that the Soul just had, can the Valor at least hold them to 50? Maybe 55? I've seen a lot of NAL score lines. This could be one of those types of situations.
I got a feeling that the Soul obviously, I really feel like the Soul will break 60 in this game, and then some. It's just going to be, 30-0 at one point. They're just going to be like, okay, I'm done watching this game. I mean, go ahead.
For everybody who's got the subscription to Monumental Sports Entertainment, you may want to hit up Ted Leonsis for a refund for this game. More power to you for sitting through it. But,
And I mean, getting down, it's obvious why it's going to be a blowout, but I'll go into it anyway because this is what we do on this week in the AFL. Get a little professional with it. The Soul defense is better. We said it earlier in the show. They are better than the team last year. They showed it against the Valor in their first meeting. And like you said, I just said 2 seconds ago, Sean Brackett. We don't know what to expect from Sean Brackett yet. No idea. I'm going under the assumption that Sean Brackett is nowhere near ready to face the defending world champions with the better defense.
And again, Joe Goosby's like, hey, I got 2 interceptions last week. Let me see if I can go 1 or 2 better than that. Because he is going to get in Brackett's face as much as he possibly can. I mean, he's very good at reading eyes and picking off routes. And talent-wise, outside of Tolliver, without Washington, I don't know who they're going to even put to make Brackett comfortable. So Gooseby can just do like he did, stand there, maybe wrench away a receiver, pick off a pass. You're deflated.
Yeah, it'll pretty much be up to Greg Carr and TT Tolliver to save this game. But then you have to remember the 2 safeties for the Soul, Dwayne Hollis Island and Torres Jones, who made that one-handed interception in the CAFL. He's doing the same thing with the Soul. It's going to be tough to get open and give Brackett some time to find them.
Yeah, it is, because just with the coverage, if you have a play, instead of taking 2 seconds to develop, they will lock down guys and in 3, 4, 5, 6, done. And then what? Now you're in 2nd and long, 3rd and long situations. And since they're not confident in their kicker, 4th and long situations. How are you going to put yourself in a position to try to generate anything?
I saw this photo today on Twitter. It was of Sean Brackett playing with Las Vegas, and he was running like it was against Philly, and he was running. He had like all the space. He's going to need that this Saturday, because Greg Carr and TT Tolliver, they're going to be stuck to Hollis, Torres Jones, and James Romaine like glue. Like they're not going to be open at all. So I hope that he finds some room to run. That's his best bet.
Yep, and even then, you have room to run. Look at your 2 linebackers. You're going to be running into them.
Yeah. So I guess we could assume that you and I are both going with Philadelphia in this game.
Oh, yeah. And I'm telling you, with this, I don't want to necessarily say anything yet, but with this win, 7-0, you're halfway there. Just saying.
Halfway there. So that game in Washington, D.C. at the Verizon Center, Valor Soul, Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern, monumentalsportsentertainment.com. Now we get to the good stuff. Baltimore Brigade will only play just their 2nd home game of the year. They'll play the Cleveland Gladiators, 7 Eastern, CBS Sports Network. And let's go into what we went into a little earlier, the quarterback battle in Baltimore. If I feel like Carden gives a better chance to win this game, but again, we have no idea what's going to happen. They have 2 Shanes. They have Shane Boyd now. They might look to start him. And like we said, this would be a test game for Baltimore to see who the better quarterback is for them.
Yeah, not only is this going to be a test game for Baltimore, this is going to be really another test game for Cleveland. Because with Baltimore, Omar Smith may not decide on a starting quarterback until game day. He's going to have hardly any time to practice, especially with Boyd. Now, typically, AFL playbooks are a little bit limited anyway, but even more limited because he's coming to the team fresh. So you have that. And then on the other side, you have questions about depth at quarterback, success at quarterback, good, but again, limiting. And now, you just had a significant change in coaching. How is all of this going to play out? Because when by game day, we're only talking 72 hours removed from all of this chaos. I don't know how that's going to factor really in anybody's heads.
Well, if I'm Ron Selesky and I know I faced off against Shane Boyd, I faced off against Shane Carton. I'm looking at that film from weeks 1 and 2 when they played both quarterbacks, and no matter who I'm playing, I want to be ready for them. I want to be ready to stop that team.
Yeah, and defensively, they have a fantastic plan, but the question hasn't been so much defense, it's been offense. How is Baltimore going to react? Because remember, they're like, okay, Cleveland doesn't have their offensive coordinator anymore. We don't know what's going on. Hey, Varmersoni, pick your guy, lock him down, we'll take care of the rest.
You know, when I first look at this game, and I looked at before the Shane Boyd and the Brandon Thompkins and all that, I thought this was going to be another blowout in favor of Baltimore. And that's what I first thought, because the way Cleveland had played the last 2 games. Then I remembered, oh wait, they played the Soul. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, that then the Baltimore Gators, they're nowhere near like the Soul. They're not as powerful as the Soul. So then I said, okay, maybe the Gladiators have a better chance. And then I remember Narvell Nelson's the quarterback, and they have Colin Taylor. And both teams, the team has a defense as far as I'm concerned. Colin Taylor, Larry Bracken, Quentin Sims. And then I'm like, okay, turn this way. I'm starting to like the Gladiators in this game. How do you feel about this?
To me, this is almost like the pure coin flip game that you can get. Now Baltimore will have a potential number 1 receiver in Thompkins. Cleveland, you have great talent at receiver, but vulnerable at times, especially on deep routes. If you can hold Cleveland and forcing to take short dump pass using sidelines, okay, you're going against the tempo of the game, but you actually have more of a likelihood of generating stops. If you're looking for any advantage whatsoever, I would have to give it to Baltimore because, yes, they've been dealing with all of this, but they're at home. Whereas Cleveland dealing with all of their issues and, oh, by the way, having to get on the bus and travel a few hours.
That's a very good point. So you're saying that you're going Baltimore to win this game and snap their 4-game losing streak?
Barely. I don't think we've had an overtime game yet this season.
No.
This would be ripe for the first.
I would love to see overtime game. Overtime games, no matter what sport it is, always exciting. It's always great. Mm-hmm. So we'll have the Soul winning, and you have Baltimore winning. I'm actually giving the edge to Cleveland because I mean Baltimore doesn't know what the quarterback is. I don't know what to expect from Brandon Thompkins with Baltimore. I assume they will have him at their number 1, but we just don't know. So Valor Soul, 1 p.m. Eastern at the Verizon Center, Washington, D.C. on Monumental Sports and Entertainment.com. Brigade Valor. Brigade Gladiators at the Royal Farms Arena. I keep wanting to say the Rofo Arena. The Royal Farms Arena in Baltimore. 7 p.m. Eastern.
If I'm the Brigade, I kind of take advantage of that kind of marketing.
CBS Sports Network. Any final thoughts tonight, Erik?
Oh boy. Sit back and watch that Cleveland-Baltimore game. If you're lucky enough to get CBS Sports Network, that's where the intrigue is really going to come to a head this week.
And I'm so happy that I now have CBS Sports Network. Last season, I didn't really have it and get to watch my games. Now I got it. So happy for that. So that'll do it for us here on This Week in the AFL. Alongside Eric Watkins, a great co-host as always. Thanks so much to Sean Garber for producing this podcast. Thank you all for listening. I'm Stephen Erik. Until next week, enjoy the games as much as you can. We'll be back to recap it all and maybe some more news stories. Until then, we out.
Yeesh.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.